All right, in this segment of our trip navigation resources video, we are gonna do three things. First, we're gonna look at prepping our devices before we go. Second, we're gonna look at actually taking the devices out into the cab of a vehicle and using them to navigate while driving. And then third, we're gonna look at how you use these devices while in the vehicle to find campsites. So the first thing you wanna do before you leave the house, while you have access to Wi-Fi or internet or whatever, is you wanna make sure your devices are updated, synced, and you have all the maps downloaded that you wanna download. So on the Garmin Overlander, the first thing we're gonna do is check to make sure the software and maps are up to date. So if we click on the right-hand side, there's this little button with an arrow. It's gonna automatically check for system updates. So that will update the map software as well as the operating system and apps if need be. And then once you're done, you can go back to the Overlander. Now, the next thing you want to do is sync your user data, which is everything that we did on the web. We want to make sure it gets pushed to the device. So we're going to click on the Explore app. Then in the bottom, we see our account. We're going to click on that. And then here you'll see your account information and the last time it synced. Now, if it hasn't synced recently, in the upper right-hand corner, you can hit the little circle button, and that is going to force the sync. And that way, all of that hard work you did planning your trip and doing that research on the website will push to your device, and then you are good to go on the Overlander. All right, so the process for Gaia is a little bit similar, but just also a little bit different. The first thing you want to do is make sure the app is up to date. You'll do that in whatever app store your phone's operating system or your tablet's operating system uses. The next thing you're going to do is want to make sure that your data has synced. Again, we want to take all that hard work we did on the web portal and make sure it's pushing down to our phone. So in the bottom right-hand corner, we'll click Settings. The second one down, you'll see your account information and when your last sync was. If you click on that, then it'll bring up what your sync settings are. And if you need to do a manual sync, it'll let you do that. The other thing with your phone is if you have other separate apps like iOverlander or the Explore app for Garmin on your phone, you'll want to do the same process. Go into the App Store, make sure you have the latest version. Go into your account settings, make sure everything is synced and up to date. So once all your digital housekeeping is done, your apps are up to date, your data is synced, your batteries are charged, the time has come. Grab your travel companion and let's go. Need these two. All right, so here we are in the cab of CT's Subaru. He's got the rooftop tent. We're gonna hijack this and go hit the Mid-Atlantic backcountry discovery route. So here's what we do. We've got the Garmin Overlander, we've got my cell phone. To navigate to the beginning of something like the backcountry discovery route, you know, in the Overlander, we click to the Explore app. Gonna pinch and zoom out. We'll scroll over towards Damascus, and then we'll zoom back in. So we know this is the first waypoint. So we click here, we click on the Sit-Go Damascus, and then this middle one right here with the arrow is the navigation app. So we click that. So the Overlander instantly switches from Explore to turn-by-turn navigation, gives us our directions to the start of the backcountry discovery route for on-road navigation. So with Gaia, it's very similar. We'll pinch and zoom out, swipe over to the BDR, zoom back in, click on that waypoint for the Sit-Go Damascus. We hit Info, and then in the upper right-hand corner where the three dots are, we're gonna hit that. We'll click Driving Directions and loads whatever default navigation app is on your phone. We hit Go, and Australian Siri is gonna give us directions to where we're gonna go. All right, so this gets everything loaded up for how to get to the backcountry discovery route. We're gonna hit the road. All right, so hypothetically, we've now reached that Sit-Go gas station in Damascus, and now we wanna show you how you can use the Garmin Overlander to navigate on the BDR itself. So here we can see the green line is our turn-by-turn navigation that's bringing us to the Sit-Go gas station. And then this red line is the GPX file for the Mid-Atlantic backcountry discovery route. So what we can do is once we get there, we'll click and it'll show both the waypoint for the Sit-Go gas station in Damascus. And then it'll also show the track file for the Mid-Atlantic Backcountry Discovery Route. So once we get there, we'll click on the GPX file. It'll load that whole route, and then all we do is we hit the navigate button again, and boom, now it'll give us turn-by-turn navigation on the GPX file for the Mid-Atlantic Backcountry Discovery Route. Okay, so now we're looking at Gaia GPS, and here's where things get a little bit foggy, because what Gaia GPS is gonna do is it's gonna tell you where your location is in relationship to the route, but it's not actually gonna tell you if you deviate, it's not gonna tell you turn-by-turn navigation. So it does take a little bit more skill to navigate on a route like this with something like Gaia GPS. It's time to find a campsite. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find a safe place to pull over, and then we'll show you how you can find a campsite on the go using both the Garmin Overlander and the Overlander app on a mobile device. All right, so we've pulled over someplace safe. Now we can look to find a campsite where we wanna stay. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the main screen, bottom right-hand corner, campgrounds. Now there's two ways you can browse for campsites. First, you can bring up a list, but that's not always the most useful thing. But in the upper right-hand corner, you can load a map. And what you can do is you can kind of scroll around on the map, and sometimes you'll see icons, sometimes you'll see some blue dots, but there's a cluster of blue dots over here. We can zoom in. Well, now we know, okay, that looks like a campground. So we got the Peaks of Otter campground, and then all we do is we hit go. Now, here's where the Garmin Overlander is kind of cool. It adds a couple different options. Start as new route, add as next stop, add as last stop, or add to active route. Since we're on our way to something, we don't want to start a new route, and we don't want to add it as a last route. So what we'll do is we'll add as next stop. And then what it's
1/4 mile, turn left on Phoenix Mill Road.
Now, once we hit add as next stop, what's going to happen is it's going to insert that campground into our directions, and then when we resume our trip, it's going to take us from that campground back towards our original destination, which in our case is the beginning of the backcountry discovery route. But if you're on something like that route, it'll direct you off to the campground and then back again. So now on our phone, we've loaded the Overlander app, and as you can see, you've got a couple different options. You can browse campsites on the map, or you can see the list. So just like on the Overlander, we're going to browse via the map. And you can see that blue dot is where we are. And if we kind of zoom out a little bit, you can kind of see some of these icons appear. Now we're going to zoom in because I know this is where the Peaks of Otter one is. So we'll see Peaks of Otter campground. We'll hit info. And then this will give us all the information on the campsite, what its amenities are and all that kind of stuff. Now down here in the bottom, we've got a couple options. We can navigate with Google Maps, we can navigate with Gaia GPS, or we can just copy the coordinates. So now what we're going to do is we'll open Google Maps, and then we can hit directions, and then we can hit start. And we got it.
Head east on Little Apple Drive towards
Right. Now the downside here is because this is not all integrated in one device, I now have multiple apps running at the same time trying to do different things. So that is one of the little quirks about using your phone versus something like the Garmin Overlander. In Overlander, the other option we have is to open the campsite in Gaia GPS. So we can click the Gaia GPS button and it'll automatically bring it up over here. So now once it loads in Gaia, now you can click on it. We can do the same thing we did before, info, upper right hand corner, then we can do driving directions, and it'll load our default navigation app. But since it's not fully integrated, now we basically have to end our original route, which was taking us to the BDR, and now it's going to give us a new route to the campsite. So in the next morning, we've got to go through that same process again to take us to our previous destination. So there you have it. That wraps up our trip navigation resources video. I know we threw a lot of information at you. This is a video. Feel free to rewind, watch it over again. But just remember, you don't need everything that we talked about. We just threw a couple ideas at you, let you know some resources that are out there. But again, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. But ultimately, at some point, it's time to pack up and go. And make sure you share those adventures with us.